BlackJack. Hit. Stand. Split. Double down. Bust. BlackJack is the only game where a player can gain a mathematical advantage over the casino by expertly using proven systems of card counting. Card counting is not cheating, but the casinos do not allow it. Doug is the manager of a famous American rock star. He's also an expert card counter who, in his spare time, has profitably played blackjack since 1975. In September 1980, he was barred from a major Las Vegas casino. This is the story of how he got back at the casinos by developing the perfect system.
1975, I picked up a book about card counting and basic strategy and learned that the game of blackjack could be beat. Many years ago, everyone playing the game just made random decisions, not knowing there was actually a right and wrong way to play. But in the early 60s, a professor from MIT by the name of Edward Thorpe decided to study the game a bit and run simulations of hands through millions of them on his computer, see if there was any rhyme or pattern to them. He came up with what is known today in blackjack land, you might say, as the basic strategy. And it's just by running thousands and millions of hands of certain situations, he could decide which was better to do, whether to hit, stand, split, or double on a particular hand. I'll give you a quick for instance. A simple hand like the 16 against the dealer's 10. Now, a lot of people just don't understand how to play this because it looks like it's a bad hand. It's the worst hand you can have. If you hit it with anything that's larger than a 5, you're going to lose. But if you don't hit it, chances are the dealer's going to have a better hand than you and beat you anyway. And it's definitely a bad hand, but you have to always assume that the dealer has a 10 underneath when you see a 10 up like this, because a large portion of the time they will. And more often than not, if you stand on that hand, he'll beat you. So you always want to hit it. That's just one example. By running all those different test hands, Thorpe came up with a right way and a wrong way to play every single possible hand that a player could have against the dealer's upcarded. Now you got to remember, for this demonstration, you got to remember the particular rules that the dealer, you have a choice whether you hit, stand, split, or double on your hand, and the dealer has to play by certain house rules. Now the dealer will, if he has to hit until he has at least 17, and then he has to stand. Okay, now you can stand on anything, and you've got that option, and that's where the high proportion number of 10s would come into effect here. Let's take a hand here. Okay, now you see, by having more 10s in the deck, because we have the little cards out, you have a better chance of pulling this 20. Now the dealer has the same chance of pulling a 20, but there's a difference. If he doesn't pull that 20 and he pulls a card less, like a 6, so he has less than 17, he has to hit it. And with a higher, proportion of 10s, that's what's going to happen. He's going to bust. Now you might think that might happen to you, but you think about it. If you come up with a hand where now you both have a possibly potentially lousy hand. Now the only difference is you don't have to hit this card. You don't have to. And knowing that there's more 10s in the deck, you wouldn't. But the dealer has to take a hit on it. And the dealer would go over and you'd win again. Now that's just the basic philosophy of why you want more large cards in there as opposed to little cards. So after developing the basic strategy, he decided to get into it a little further, and what he would do is he would take, in a computer simulation, he would take all the 2s out of the deck and then play millions of hands using his basic strategy as the way to play. and just to see if the player won more often or not, according to if these twos were all of a sudden missing, and which would be the same thing as if the dealer had them in his discard pile. And he noticed a very slight difference. So then he would put them back in, take the threes out, and then put those in and take the fours out. And as he got near the fives, he started noticing just a large amount of difference, that the player was winning quite a bit more often. Thorpe discovered that there's a large effect on the player's chances of winning, and the more little cards came out of the deck, the more often the player would win. And so by having these out of the deck, what it does, it's giving you a higher proportionate number of tens and face cards in the deck, which is would cause the player to win more often. So a simple way, since it's very complicated mathematically, he devised a simple way of keeping track of that any player could use walking into a casino. And that would be by every time a little card comes out of the deck, it becomes, he would count to himself +1. Because now proportionately, there's one more 10 card in there than there are little cards. And so it would then be +2, +3, and he now has a slight advantage over, a fairly good advantage over winning the next hand over the house. But if a face card came out, that would be considered a minus card. So that +3 now becomes +2. Another -1 card would make it +1. Then this would make it +2, +3, +4, etc. Now the idea here is that when you're playing under these conditions, you will win more often. So when you have a plus count, you want to bet larger amounts of money. Now to use that, instead of counting every card, to use that in a practical application in a casino, you'd have to look in groups of pairs and three of a kind, where you could easily see that's a -1. That would be counted as a +1, a +2, a 0, and here we have a +1. So you'd immediately go -1, 0, because it was a +1, +2, still a +2, we're now at a +3. So we now have a slight advantage. The players have a slight advantage over the house, so they would bet more money here, approximately 3 units, which would be like 3 chips. So I'm at a +3, now I'm at a +5, 6, +7, still a +7, +8. So we'd be betting a lot of money in these hands. We'd be betting as much as high as 8 units.
Gives you everything you need.
Attempt at card counting in a casino was during an 8-hour stay in the Bahamas. The cards were dealt so fast I kept losing both the count and my money. But by the end of the night, I was able to keep track of the cards all the way through 4 decks and began grinding out my first profit. The system worked. My first trip to Las Vegas was with my friend Ron, who liked to play craps, and because he was considered a high roller, the casinos had provided us with free airline tickets, rooms, and meals. The reason being that most high rollers lose big and the casinos compete heavily for their business. The intimidating presence of the pit bosses made it very hard for me to concentrate, and my modest bankroll bounced up and down all weekend. But as I was getting ready to leave, I sat down for one last game, and within 20 minutes I turned $600 into $2,800. And as I was cashing out the chips at the casino cage, the pit boss came up to me and handed me his card and said, "Hey, look, we like your action. We'd like to invite you back. Anytime you want to come back, just give us a call. In fact, I suggest that you establish a credit line so you won't have to carry cash next time." I thought, well, that was real nice of him. About 3 weeks later, I returned as guest of the same casino, but this time with a $5,000 credit line. The casino host met me at the airport with a limo in the true high roller tradition. Later at the blackjack tables, I noticed that all the pit bosses were closely watching my action and keeping track of how much I was winning or losing. It didn't take long to realize that if I could sneak chips off the table and appear to be losing, I would probably be invited back often, and the casinos would keep offering to pay for all my expenses. But as a card counter, I knew I also had to make sure the pit bosses didn't see me keeping track of all the cards or notice me making large jumps in my bets, which are both requirements to work the system. Pit bosses look very closely at these things as an indication of card counting. One thing I've learned basically over the years is no matter how good of a card counter you are, card counting is only about 90% of it, or actually about 10% of it. 90% of it is your act. I mean, I had to quickly learn how to make a pass at the waitress, how to talk to the pit boss, act like I was drunk, and still see every card on the table and keep track of everything. And also know how much money I have in front of me. That's always real important, because even though you're trying not to act like you don't care about money, you got to keep track of it. After I really got heavy into the card counting and blackjack playing, I averaged about 1 week in a month for a little over 5 years, almost all at the same casino, basic casino in Las Vegas. And during that time, I learned a lot more about the game, and as more players were getting better and being barred and turning authors, and the wider spread the interest was, the more scientific people were getting into it, mathematicians from universities and things, and I've compiled virtually a complete library on just about every piece of good material that's been published on the game. And all these new authors, new research, computer research is being done, advancing Thorpe's original work. So I decided to study these systems, and I bought a nice little Radio Shack business computer and programmed it myself to play blackjack, and where I could just set it up, put in the counting system I wanted to test, and it would run between 500 and 1,000 hands per hour. I'd go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, come down after thousands of hands, I would see the results. And so I would test out the different systems, and I came up with, moved the numbers around and came up with my own system that I now know is to be one of the most powerful systems available.
After frequenting this hotel for over 5 years as a guest of the casino, Doug flew out to Las Vegas to join some friends one Friday in September 1980. During the weekend, an event took place which totally changed the next 3 years of his life.
Friday night, I went in, played only for 1 hour, and picked up a little over $700. And Saturday morning when it happened, I walked down, early in the morning, walked down into the casino, and I was approaching an empty $100 table when one of the pit bosses, actually one of the few pit bosses that I really didn't know very well, jumped over the rope and grabbed me by the arm and said, "Got to talk to you." Pulled me over by the slot machines, and I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now. And he just looked me in the eye and said, "You can't play here anymore. You can't play blackjack here. Your play's too good." And I didn't know what to do. And he managed to pull out a little card, read me off a little state law regarding trespassing, told me that I was no longer welcome in the casino, and if I would come back in the casino that I would be arrested. I tried to explain to him I've been losing for years, and he said, "Look," he said, "we've had, since your last trip, which was only a couple weeks earlier," he said, "we've had no fewer than 3 of our top pit bosses watching your every move. Despite my innocent act, I was being accused of being a professional blackjack player, card counter. I've been barred from the Las Vegas Hilton." I just couldn't believe that a casino would stop a skilled player from playing when they don't do that to a poor player. I see lots of people in there have no idea what to do, and a casino never walks out to them and says, "Oh, excuse me, sir, don't split those tens. That's a dumb move. You're going to lose your money. You can't play here anymore. You're losing too much." They never do that. But the first time a guy comes in and can sit down and play halfway decent and have a chance at possibly winning some money occasionally, they throw the guy out. That seems totally unfair, that a casino that reports over $80 million a year in profits can kick some guy out who's out just trying to win a few measly dollars.
The casinos have the power to legally ban anyone they consider undesirable.
Key there, Scott. Give this thing a shot here. A little juice. Whoa, yeah. Just keep seeing it there, yeah. There we go. Ooh. Whoa. Fred needs Scott. Okay, Guinness. Okay, to go for the big one a little bit. Take a little more time, but tonight will just be a short test. After the initial shock of being barred wore off and I returned home, I figured my days of free trips and fancy suites in Las Vegas were over. I knew that over the years, the casino's policy of comping the high rollers had tightened to the point that I would probably have to start betting $100 chips just to get the same type of treatment I was getting at the Hilton, betting only $25 chips. Even at my level of skill, I couldn't afford that. The party was over. It was time to return to my research papers and books, devise a new and better system. It was time to put the fun aside and go after the big money. Okay, so utilizing my library and all the information I've gathered over the years about the game and the math behind the game and the scientific papers I've dug up, I designed a system that could literally beat the game of blackjack mathematically, not like a counting system, but the actual math that Thorpe's original figures, and plugged that into my Radio Shack computer and designed a system that would beat the game with as high as a 7% edge over the house under ideal conditions, which you've got to remember, I mentioned earlier that the best card counter in the world can only squeak out 2.5% under those same conditions. So now we're dealing with something that could go as high as 7%. And the challenge at that point was to, like I mentioned earlier, about bringing the MIT computer into the casino. Now, years ago, that would have been impossible. The computer is probably the size of this house. But using today's technology, I thought it might be possible. As I got deeper into this project, I realized the complexity of the programming and the intricacies of the hardware would require me to enlist some outside help. So I contacted a neighbor who worked with the head of the computer science research department at a local university. This is the campus all around here. Mark looked over the basis of my program and the parameters of my hardware needs and told me that with today's technology, it could be done. So I explained to Mark that the real challenge was to take that immense program that we'd programmed and designed and try to fit into a small enough package that we could literally take it into the casino, interact with it while we're at the blackjack table and play blackjack without anybody in the casino knowing it, none of the bosses or security. And he agreed to build it based on my specifications, and this is what we came up with. What we have here is I designed a very unique hexadecimal 4-switch input that would allow us the speed and the accuracy necessary to input the value of every card that comes off the deck. Every card is stored in the computer, and then whenever it's time for us to play a hand or make a decision on a bet or an insurance of any kind of decision, hit, stand, split, or double, it immediately calculates your exact advantage to do one of those decisions, and microseconds later sends out a signal to the player who has nothing on him but this receiver. And from this receiver come out 2 electrodes that are called nerve stimulators that are attached to the body and shoot you with little electrical shocks in a coded system to tell you what the decision was, whether to hit, stand, or whatever. And the idea of having it in 2 pieces like this is to have one operator just wear this stuff, have the player wear this equipment, so the player literally doesn't have to see any of the cards. He can just put all his time into the act. He can act drunk, he can not see the cards, he can talk to the pit boss, whatever it takes, and yet the whole time, he could play blindfold, and yet the whole time he's playing perfect blackjack.
Highs up to 65 here, tonight low about 40. Right now we have 57 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 Celsius, 37% our humidity under mostly cloudy skies. Time in 10 seconds will be 10 o'clock. Stay tuned for CBS News.
Disaster, all I say is like the honeymoon is over, and that means just turn toward the door and walk out.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, now if anything mild happens, or you just want to something.
There was only one little problem remaining. That was I had to figure out a way that I could walk into a casino, buy into a $100 minimum table with $10,000 in cash, jump my bets from $100 to $2,000 per hand, while at the same time have someone standing right behind me with his right hand in his pocket operating the computer while watching every single card that was played, and do all this without arousing suspicion of the pit bosses. something that could pass close inspection, and something to put everybody in the casino at ease and off guard. Some problem. It finally came to me. We needed a wedding. Okay, as everybody knows, last night was very successful. Okay, we went in and used Fred without any type of detection from the pit bosses or any kind of heat, and I received the signals with no problem, and so we're ready for the big undress rehearsal here.
Okay, did you play that table alone, or
Yeah, it was just Scott and I.
straight on action, and there was no problem?
No problem at all. And it was a kind of a real paranoid pit boss type situation, but they were too busy watching other people, not us. And so what we're going to do tonight, like I said, the undress rehearsal, we're going to have to get used to being in the casino in our prospective positions that we are going to be taking in the wedding party. And what we're going to do is we're going to position ourselves around a table in such a way that Kathy and I will be playing one particular hand as the bride and groom.
Okay, why don't we get up and try all the positions at the table then?
Here's your typical blackjack table, about 70% of a full size. Too. We've got, as everybody knows, first and third base, and I'm going to try to sit, at least for the time being, center seat. And if we position everybody, Scott, in answer to one of your questions, is hopefully we'll be able to block out most of the table, because it should be a little intimidating. We're in a wedding party, and we're going to be covering up most of the table. It'll look like everybody's playing. At the same time, who's going to want to sit down at a private party table? But basically, with Kathy on my left.
If we're having too much fun, everybody will want to sit down.
Kath? Hopefully just watch. Okay, Kathy will be on my left. Well, hopefully this seat will be too far out and Ron will be blocking anybody from getting at the seat.
Well, I can stand by this seat here and push it far enough out, and if you move these two seats over just a little bit.
Okay, and then if Scott would have to be between us, because he's going to have to see our hand, and most importantly, I'm going to be showing our hand to Kathy. We'll be playing the hand between us all the time, and Scott will have to see that, and yet still be able to see if anybody does get in here. Okay, Lynn will be with Ron in this position, and we'll need Denise kind of in here, kind of looking over my right shoulder and my left shoulder as you move around, but mostly keeping his right hand blocked all the time, his whole arm, in case there's any movement is on at all. And we should be able to cover
Never block the table.
three-quarters of it, well, three-quarters of a table, especially if you're moving.
Broke even for the two belts. Get your, I guess I won't go into the asking.
Then I do the quick announcement, all right. Whoa! Not bad, not bad.
Did you see the Ethan was in there?
No, that was your job. I mean,
amazing.
because I didn't have to pay attention, that's why I could, put on my act and still count all the cards.
I think the act was good.
But the good news, what I cashed in was $575, because I had a mark on it. I didn't want to have to buy it back. But good news is we got another $825 that I raked off the table.
All right. Hey.
So a $400 profit in 30 minutes. It's not too bad. It's
That's great.
almost what I get paid at work. That's real close.
That's close, huh? Not bad. I felt real comfortable, though.
I thought everybody did.
About to tell us it was time to go, because we had about 5 people watching us. We had 2 behind us. One had the security badge on. He had 2 pit bosses, and then he had another one that was walking back and forth. And the only reason I kept looking at the one security guard, they finally split about the 3rd time I looked at them, but then they split up and kept going.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else?
I was called to the bathroom.
Well, I don't blame
They
them.
followed, I followed you. That's right.
But it was a good act. Maybe it was just the act was too perfect. Maybe everybody's just, something's going on here. They don't look like they know what they're doing, but they're winning. Later that evening, the mood changed. The computer completely died, and we were forced to return home to find the problem.
We reached a certain point where the answer...
Mark and I had to completely tear everything apart, and it took us 18 hours before we concluded the worst. The problem was in the software. We had to pull the program off the memory chips and load it back into my home computer to check the logic. We eventually found that a software error had caused the program to crash, destroying a whole section of data, rendering Fred inoperable.
And really, we're going to have to rewrite the whole program. Okay, well, look at this routine, the betting routine, for instance. All right, there would be another way to do this.
Another 23 hours later, we managed to reconstruct the data and nullify the bug in the program to make sure it never happened again.
As I mentioned to you that my computer, which we've named Fred now, is very capable of eking out as much as a 7% advantage over the house. Now, I mentioned earlier that was under ideal conditions, and one thing you've got to understand that there's a lot of variables that affect your overall percentage and win rate. And with all the information that we've been armed with putting together, Fred, I've also been able to put together formulas similar to this formula here that can actually determine what our advantage might be or what we might expect to win or lose or make in an hour at a particular table. So as I'm planning out the wedding that we've been discussing about doing, I have to kind of figure out what we stand to make and how much money we could possibly lose, so I could go in armed with a bankroll that would give me a 99% chance of not losing it, period. Because it gets very complicated. So I've taken this formula and programmed it into my computer here. Okay. What this gives us is it starts off with the variables that we've actually plugged in, like the $100 chips, the spread of 20. Now, the larger the spread, the more it'll affect the positive fluctuations, give you a larger advantage. We've set it up for 4 decks, and this means that it'll deal out 85% of the deck of this table. And that means it literally deal out 85% of the cards before they reshuffle. We've set up that there would be 3 extra players at the table. The C stands for computer count, which means that it's not really counting cards, but it would be playing perfect. That would be a playing efficiency of 1 and a betting correlation of 1. And then the rule variation for Caesars particularly is just that number there. Now, it runs through this particular formula up here and brings us down to an advantage. Now, in this particular situation, the advantage will only be 3.38%, which can range anywhere from 0 to 7% again. Win rate per hour, based on the $100 chips under these conditions, would be approximately $902 per hour. Now, in a matter of 2 hours, using this, again, the national standard formula for deviation, 68% of the time will be between a negative 28.62 and a positive 64.70. So 68% of the time we could still be down a little bit. 95% of the time will be between a negative 75.29 and a positive $11,137. Now 99% of the time, which means your percent of ruin, we could sink down as far as $12,195, but at the same time we could be up just as easy, up 15,803.
But you have got to be prepared to sink down the 12,000.
You do have to be prepared. So under this particular table condition, I would be ready to walk into the casino. I would walk in there with approximately $13,000, knowing that 99% of the time I could never hit that low with this particular advantage. And after 2 hours, that would give us a win of $1,800. Now you've got to understand this. You can't take Fred into the casino and make $1 million. You are working off a small percentage, and in a short run, the variations could kill you if you didn't have this kind of information and you weren't prepared for a negative fluctuation to sink down that far.
After cancelling the first wedding party attempt, a new date was set based on the availabilities of the team to commit a week for the necessary preparation and rehearsal. Denise was unable to make the new date and was replaced by Mary Beth.
During practice sessions for the wedding, we were getting the usual heat caused by Scott having to stand behind me watching all the cards. And this really concerned me because it made me realize that what were we going to do after the wedding? I mean, we would have to find some kind of new approach for using Fred, since we couldn't obviously run around town pretending to get married every night. Well, I went to bed thinking about it that evening and woke up with a perfect scam in mind, which was later dubbed the Kansas Caper, due to Ron's performance and the way he dressed. But what we would do is this. Ron and Linda and Scott and Denise, looking like tourists from Kansas, would walk up to a $25 table. Ron would buy in with a couple $100 and start playing just using his basic strategy, but only betting 1 chip at a time, as if his entire life savings was riding on every single hand, while the other 3 would just cheer him on. Then all of a sudden, Kathy and I would come cruise up, sit down at the table pretending we didn't know these rowdy tourists, and looking like rich kids from LA, we'd just buy in with $5,000 and start playing as though we didn't care whether we won or lost. It worked great. We'd have Scott standing behind Ron, and absolutely no one standing behind me, And yet the whole time, I'm still getting the signals from the computer, which is still concealed on Scott.
Gotta start.
Mark had a dual purpose. During the wedding, he would just hang around the casinos as if he was a tourist, just playing slot machines, but all along keeping an attentive eye on our party. That way, at the first sign of trouble, he was instructed to return to the condo and inform our attorney that we'd been apprehended, in which case our attorney would spring into action and immediately contact the appropriate law enforcement authorities and news media.
I split fours. I put a $400 bet up there. I split fours against the 6.
You did?
Yes.
Why, you dummy?
$400 bet, and I put 400 on each
What happened?
four. I got one good hand and one bad hand with the dealer busted. In fact, Scott probably remembers that. Remember when I had the pair of fours?
I remember
Well,
it.
the time I split them. You never, ever, ever split fours. And I'm getting a signal. I'm thinking, I should double down on this. I was thinking, dash, dash. No, that's a split. No, it must mean double down. This isn't Caesar's Palace. Dash, dash. Should I double down on this? What do you think? Dash, dash.
Yeah, that's right.
Ron's not going to believe this. Split them. Okay. And then Cooney went, huh? He got $1,000 bet, but everybody won. She busted.
That's right. He busted. When did we get in there? About 12:30?
1:45?
22, that's
22?
20 to 2?
That's right.
So figure almost 2 before we played. It's 1:30.
Not even 2 hours.
Not even 2 hours?
And we did 150%.
You used the same battery pack.
And they never...
I mean, we start out with $2,000.
Not all playing time.
No, I realize that.
We start out with $2,000, bought back the marker, and end up with 3,000. And oh wait, I won 15 of this at the crap table on the way out. So that goes over here in the pocket. And other than that, we did 3,042, $5 change, $47. Oh yeah, that's right. Then
Don't forget...
So at least we finally found the tux pants to fit.
Oh, yeah, you played a chicken tuck shot. But I had something out for you. I'm in there saying, yeah, well, this is my wedding, but I want these pants cut a little different for the best man. She goes, well, that's no problem. And I put up. She said, you try them on first. I said, yeah, he's about my size, a little small. And I put them on, and they fit like a glove. I said, no, these won't do. I want them a lot baggier. He goes, well, how big is he? Well, the same height that I am, about 130 pounds. She goes, well, he'll look terrible in those. I go, I don't care what he looks like. I can stay at 3/4 power. Yeah, when I was on the top of the lake, I had to use full power.
If you guys are wondering about the bandages, that's from our practice sessions.
Yes, in our earlier tape. Good old action tape.
Yeah. It's the
Action tape. It's guaranteed never to come off, even after 4 years. So if you ever miss the shuffle and you come in the middle, just give me the plays and don't count the cards.
I wasn't sure that would do that. This thing's more sophisticated than I thought.
Oh, lovely stuff.
First place set up for 6 decks and they'll double down after splits.
3 down, 4 down. I say.
I drove down the strip tonight. People actually get married in those churches.
Oh, heck yes. I'm sure there's marriages going on. Which ways?
I don't know, just put around and all.
4. Reset. Okay. We shuffle. 2, 3, 4. Sure. 1, 2, 3. Let's turn it 9 bet. Give me a couple on 5s. Okay, no, another bet. You're not jumping much. Okay. Kathy, you ready?
I'm right here. Come in.
Yeah, I remember when you used to fit in those pants. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going with the reset position.
Reset.
I got out.
You're done. Okay. Great.
Sounds good.
Let's go.
I'm pretty stressed.
All right. I'll see you next door. Oh, as you know, tonight's a big night. And I just want to review a few signals before we actually get out there. A couple things. If we have problems, once we get to Caesar's Palace, all right, we go through the normal routine of reboot, check everything, change batteries, whatever, and if we still have a problem, you get a signal from me, don't do anything, don't leave. What I'm going to do is I'm going to excuse myself, go to the bathroom, and then I will change batteries, and then I'll come back, and that'll be the last thing we do. And if I still don't get a signal, then we leave. I just announce that we'll leave, and we leave. Simple as that. And then the signals now, remember, one time across the watch means I stop getting a signal. I wipe the face of the watch, right? And that's immediately you reboot.
Oh, it's garbled.
Yeah, but something wrong. Okay. So you reboot. Okay, and then if everything's fine, the little twitch of the thumb signal again that you gave me a shuffle, and then we wait till the next shoot before you start counting again. Other than that, if we use the word wife, still, now that we're man and wife, it still means there's a lot of heat. Let's just slowly, gradually get out of here as quick as possible.
Leave the car. Take a cab.
And then the final word, which I don't think anybody should say except Ron or I, the honeymoon's over. That means that it's completely 100% we are being busted, or about to be busted. Okay, and you know, everybody knows Jack. Jack is going to give us a few tips on the legal ramifications of what we're doing. Counselor.
Well, hopefully the only legal ramifications are going to be the income tax consequences from all the money you're going to make, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But seriously, I've spent time researching this, researching the Nevada law. I even had conversations with a guy from the Nevada Gaming Control Board Enforcement Division. I've got some notes here from having talked with him. And the computer is simply not a cheating device. If it were a cheating device, you'd have a violation of the law. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be real happy if you are discovered. Okay, I think you all know that. The general rule in any situation when you're apprehended in a criminal case is not to say anything. You know, tell them your name, be polite, be courteous, but don't tell them anything. You don't have to tell them anything. You have a right to remain silent. Now, you're going to be a little nervous, and I suspect that they are very intimidating when they want to be. And if you do, for some reason, get arrested, they call in the police and you are arrested. Hopefully, our spotter, Mark, will have tipped me off and I can make arrangements to get you out on bail.
If they do search us and they find tape recording equipment or Fred on us, do they have the right to take it away? Can we ask for a receipt saying that's my property, I want it?
Good point. I would resist verbally anything they want to do. In fact, once you're apprehended or detained or whatever, I would make it clear to them in a very pleasant manner, hey, we want to leave. Let them know that you're being held there against your will.
Okay, now everybody's got the signals.
Got it.
Everybody's got the phone numbers. Everybody's got the marriage information. And we'll go in the MGM first, and we'll be returning after that. Is everybody ready? Okay, let's have a good wedding. Let's go. Oh, which is luck. Hold on the fort. Problem.
I gotta admit, I'm a little nervous right now.
I think about it.
Ready? You take my arm now?
I certainly will.
That's good.
Photography is not allowed in the casinos, so all filming and tape recording had to be conducted secretly.
Oh, this place is real lively.
Huh? My name's Ron. Mine's Bert. All right. Bert? Pleasure. The other fellow was telling me it's kind of quiet here now, huh?
This is the slowest time of the year right now.
Is it?
Yeah. Where do these come from?
People don't go on a lot of Christmas vacations, huh?
Well, people are busy. Ooh, whoops. I like the red card better.
Yeah.
Whoa! Look at all these aces! Look at all those 21s!
No wonder I only have one black.
Yeah. Yeah, they were all waiting at the bottom for you.
So you want to take our money and take it someplace else? I mean, come on.
The wedding party moved on to its prime target earlier than planned, after encountering unfavorable game conditions and a slight negative swing at the MGM.
As long as they say the word 20.
Here he is holding a big banner.
It's the same size banner.
One drink, and they go, it's like a hotel, you wind it up. Oh, isn't that a game? So Heist to the casino.
We gotta hold her down. I'm stepping on her foot so she doesn't do it.
Two. Well, there's two $50 bets. And I'm boring. What do you want to do?
Now she's getting smart when she asks.
Now you want to stand.
Me, huh?
Should have hit it. Should have hit it.
No, it would have still put you over. You would have had 22.
Well, that's right. Didn't make a difference.
Didn't matter. Didn't matter.
Oh, I feel better now. I feel better
Stick it
now.
up for you. That's good.
Good?
Good. Over. Good. Good job.
Look at that. Hey, she didn't even deal and we won. All right. Okay, let's go. That's the hand we started out with. 7. All right.
Okay.
That's more like it.
That's it. You took the wrong marker first. That's what it was. You were taking the 2 before the 3. Be optimistic. You may not have needed that much. There you go. 500 would have been fine.
Although the original plans called for the wedding party to keep moving from casino to casino, Doug decided, due to the favorable conditions of the game they were being dealt, that the team would stay at Caesars for as long as they could get away with their act. As the night wore on, the smiles wore thin, as tired pit bosses watched a tiring wedding party slowly and steadily build up their stacks of $100 chips. By the end of the 6th hour, the number of pit bosses and plain-clothed and uniformed security had tripled. The mood became very tense, and the team were confused and disorientated. Returning from the cloakroom, Scott realized that discovery was close at hand and decided to get the computer out of the casino. Shortly after, Doug gave the signal for the rest of the team to pull out. Due to the enormous pressure focused on the wedding party, the camera crew, who were now under surveillance themselves, could no longer get close enough to the table and decided not to increase the risk of discovery of the computer.
When did you first notice something was wrong?
I noticed something was wrong after the first 30 minutes we were there, and that guy with the white pants and the blue shirt would never leave. It was like he would just stay there and stay there, and every time I looked up, he was looking at me. I caught eye contact with him all the time. Just you know, every time I looked up, the guy was eye contact with me.
And he was nervous from the very beginning.
Nervous, very beginning. And when he was still there 4 hours later, and then I realized that they were security guards. After I noticed the gun, I realized they were pointing Scott out. It was just got too weird. Everything I've ever read about any of those situations, it's always like all of a sudden you look around and there's nobody, no security guards, no pit bosses, and that's when you're in trouble. And that's what it started to look like to me.
This is the calmest before the storm.
Yeah, exactly. And even though everybody was giving a lot of pressure, there was a couple of the pit bosses that actually worked my pit that might have held everybody off too, because they watched me play. They watched me hit hard 17 in the last. You missed that. 3 or 4 hands before the very end, the guy Scott saying, "Well, you better pay attention. You're not playing very well." And the guy who had his hand on the back of my chair, standing next to me, I looked up and said, "Hey, how am I doing?" He says, "Looks like you're making all the right decisions to me." And what did I have up? I had a hard 17, and I hit it.
Remember that?
You got a 2.
Right, the big question, how much did you win?
To tell you the truth, I was so tired I have no idea.
I sent, was it 2 or 3 times, Ron, I sent you up to the cashier's cage.
Count
Ow.
You still have some chips, though.
Yeah. Took whatever we had off table to get out of there quick. You weren't even back. I was taking over.
No, that's why I asked you if it was safe for me to even leave at that
3 or 4 nice build-ups, only 1 major setback.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 65, 50, 6,550.
Well, the wedding party was a success and you weren't caught, so what next?
Well, we've got some other plans to follow up to utilize. I told you last night, I have Plan B I had before I had Plan A. And it's a simple, very effective plan to get away with our type of operation. It won't have the grandeur of for flying in 11 people and organizing a Mission Impossible type of hit on the casinos, but it'll be a profitable, money-making situation. And we'll utilize Fred at its fullest.
How do the audience that are watching this film know that you're not cheating them? I mean, could the whole thing be a setup?
No, I've got a lot of witnesses, and I'd be glad to give everybody my P.O. box number and have them write me, and I'll be glad to talk to anybody about it. When this film finally shows, I'll be glad to talk to anybody about it and give anybody demonstration proof. And like I said, I've got a lot of outside witnesses. I've got the casinos, I've got you, the camera crew, just everybody that I brought into this. They know. They wouldn't be doing it, and all these people wouldn't be here doing it if they didn't know that it worked. Well, after about a year and a half of constantly winning, we started to get more and more heat from the casinos. And it finally came to a head in about June when just one weekend we were almost caught at the Sands Casino in Vegas and on a Friday night. On Saturday, we were followed from casino to casino all over town by a couple of what looked like plainclothes agents. And then on Sunday, I walked in the MGM only to find my picture posted in every blackjack table. So about that time, I figured it's time for a break. And that was June. It's been we've been away from Vegas now for about 4 months, but we're planning on going back next month and for our new assault. And hopefully with this new look, I won't be recognized quite so quickly.
Even so, how long are you going to be able to get away with it?
Well, for me personally, there's only a few casinos left that I can play in anyway. And so as soon as this film is going to be shown, I think I'm going to personally retire. But for Fred, he'll be living on. I now have 3 computers. Enough new team members to keep at least 1 or 2 teams working around the clock for the next year or 2. All right, on to the holidays.
Beating the odds consistently. It's every gambler's dream. For most, it's just a dream. But this man made it a reality. For more than 2 years, he beat the house with the help of electronic equipment hidden in his underwear. He says he did it because casinos stack the odds against the average gambler.
Psychologically, they gear everything toward separating all the old ladies from Kansas, separating them from their money. Just the way they apply them with drinks, with all the noise, no windows in the casinos, no clocks, pure oxygen pumped into the system to keep people awake and so they can keep gambling.
Frank is a successful businessman and a professional blackjack player. He started gambling in 1975 after mastering a method known as card counting, a simple system that allows him to keep track of every card played.
Card counting identifies when the player has an advantage, and by recognizing that advantage when it is, you can bet more money and you win more often with the larger bets that way.
Card counting is not illegal, but casinos have the right to ban card counters from their property. That's what happened to Frank after pit bosses spotted him winning consistently.
And I learned right away that the trick isn't how good of a card counter you are, it's the interaction, the game with the casino. It's how getting the money off the tables and out of the casino and not letting them know that you're winning all the time.
But just how do you count cards without being noticed? Frank developed a computer program that could play mathematically perfect blackjack. All he needed was a computer small enough to sneak into a casino. Then he could even the score.
I was quite upset with the casinos at the time. And so I decided to go for the throat.
Frank spent 2 years and $50,000 to develop a miniature computer. Here's how it worked. The computer was taped to the body of an accomplice, while Frank wore a receiver under his clothes. Once inside the casino, the accomplice stood behind Frank, watching every card he played and entering the information into a keyboard inside his pocket. In seconds, the computer sent electric impulses to Frank's body, telling him in Morse code how to bet. The first brief test of the device was an overwhelming success.
$3,042, $5 change, $47.
Encouraged by his success, Frank planned a major sting of Las Vegas casinos, a sting that was documented on film by the BBC.
And what we're going to do is we're going to position ourselves around a table in such a way that Kathy and I will be playing one particular hand as the bride and groom.
With the help of several friends, Frank assembled a mock wedding party that could surround a blackjack table and help to draw attention away from the person carrying the computer. After several rehearsals, the group was ready for their premiere performance. Dressed for their parts, the group gathered around a blackjack table, and it quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary wedding party.
Look at all these aces! Look at all those 21s!
In less than 20 minutes, Frank had won more than $6,000, and his table was quickly surrounded by pit bosses and security guards. They watched with amazement as Frank, who appeared not to be counting cards, won repeatedly.
They could see us grinding it out of them. They knew something was wrong. I mean, it wasn't within the odds, and I thought they were going to arrest us right on the spot.
As the pressure mounted, Frank gave the signal for the group to leave. It wasn't until later that they realized how much they'd won.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Frank's winnings for the night, $18,200 in chips and cash. Over the next 2 years, he won much more than that, until the BBC finally aired this footage in London. Casinos immediately outlawed computerized devices on their property. Frank no longer uses the device and has been banned from major casinos.
Last time I won the MGM, I went around and saw my picture at every blackjack table, and I decided, no, I better not play there anymore. So I haven't been back there since.
Retired from gambling, Frank has fond memories of the sting. He says winning the money wasn't as important as the satisfaction of beating the casinos at their own game.
And we feel like we're striking a blow for all the little people that go there and lose their vacation savings.
And Nabisco double stuffed
Stopped by a man who lives right here in Metro Detroit. In my series, Michigan Gamblers Living for Luck, we hear the story tonight of a man who has beaten the casinos at their own game and beaten them badly. Beating the odds consistently. That's what every serious gambler hopes to accomplish. For most, it's an impossible goal. But this Detroit area man did just that. Using high technology, he found a way to legally beat casinos at their own game.
On weekends, I'd like to go to Las Vegas. I've been there over 120 times. I've had 3 losing weekends out of those 120 sometimes.
Frank is a successful businessman who also considers himself a professional blackjack player. He started gambling in 1975 after mastering a method known as card counting, a simple system that allows him to mentally keep track of every card played. It greatly increased his chances of beating the house.
Blackjack is the only casino game that mathematically can be beat.
Card counting is not illegal, but casinos have the right to ban card counters from their property. That's exactly what happened to Frank after pit bosses spotted him winning consistently. Frank returned to his suburban Detroit home, determined to find another way to beat the casinos at their own game legally. After working more than a year with an engineer, he developed a miniature computer that could not only count cards, it played perfect mathematical blackjack.
Gives you about a 3.5 times a bigger advantage than the best card counter in the world can do in his brain, in his head.
Armed with his new invention, Frank planned a sting of the major Las Vegas casinos. That sting was documented over the last 3 years by the BBC. This is the first time Frank has told his story publicly here in the United States. Here's how it worked. This miniature computer was taped to the body of an accomplice, while Frank wore a receiver under his clothes. Once inside the casino, the accomplice would stand behind Frank, watching every card that was dealt, entering the information into a keyboard inside his pocket. In a matter of seconds, the computer would send electrical impulses to Frank's body, telling him in Morse code how to bet.
The pit bosses would get very suspicious and watch me, but then I could turn around and talk to one of them and not see half the cards on the table that round, turn back and make my bet. It was because somebody else was looking at all the cards for me.
After testing the device, Frank pulled off the sting with the help of several friends. Posing as a wedding party, they managed to surround a blackjack table and successfully distracted the casino pit bosses.
In 20 minutes, I was up about $6,000, $7,000.
By the end of the night, Frank had won $18,200. Over the course of the next 3 years, he won much more until the BBC aired this footage in London. Casinos immediately outlawed the use of computerized devices on their property. Since it is now illegal, Frank no longer uses the device. He's gone back to simple card counting. A bit wealthier, with the satisfaction of knowing that he has managed to beat the odds.
The money is just a method of keeping score. Making the money's nice, but actually going in there and pulling off what we did was 10 times more fun.